All right. Welcome to February 10th, Saturday. The markets are closed, but this is kind of an update and summary of what happened yesterday. So, on February the 9th, on Friday, we saw a fair bit of volatility and activity. We start in the oil sector. We had Enbridge come out with some fantastic earnings, way better than the loss in the previous quarter last year, or a comparable quarter last year. But that was due to a goodwill write off that generated that loss, a non cash generated goodwill write down. So the earnings were positive. It certainly was not reflected in the stock, but I think it still has um, a lot of opportunity to move upwards and is at a very attractive price point in the low 46 range. Um, Consolidated Edison dropped quite a bit and then made a nice recovery towards the end of the day for a small, low percentage increase for the day, but nevertheless coming into ex dividend and earnings next week. So if you're holding it, I believe on Wednesday of next week, you're going to be in for the dividend. And the same is true for Exxon. So Exxon made a weird move yesterday. It popped higher at open, and kind of, I mean, crude really didn't do anything. It was just kind of sitting there. And then Exxon jumped up and then dropped off significantly. I'm really having a hard time understanding why both Chevron and Exxon dropped off yesterday. But nevertheless, I think at 101.77 for Exxon, I think you're in for a couple of dollar bump there. And I believe that if you look at that and look at the dividend information for Exxon, you'll be in good shape there as well. Taking a little time for me to resolve, but I think it's coming up ex dividend. Don't quote me on that. Don't have a great connection where I am right now. SLB dropped yesterday and then stayed low for the day. I think it's a good buying opportunity there if you want to look at picking that up. Valero had a lot of volume and activity yesterday, so that was a great one to get in and out of, and closed for the day higher at 143. So definitely a lot of potential here, a lot of peaks and valleys and different entry points. So you've got that beginning of the day from 9:30 to, let's say, 10:30. You have that head and shoulders pattern again. It dropped off and then it peaked, so the drop would have been a great time to buy in around this area, anywhere in here. And then if you had a held, you could have got out in the 142.50 range or 142.40, and then you could have bought in on the dip again and got out on the peak. And then basically it didn't do much, so I would have sat out there. And then here was a question mark. It's whether or not you want to get back in and you feel this thing's going to go higher. I had a feeling it would go higher, and it ended up going higher. So in the end, closed up, and I would have probably closed out my position and waited for Monday to see what happened over the weekend, because with the terrorism going on and the attacks in the Red Sea, everything really is on the table in terms of what can happen. So I'm not a big fan of holding things over the weekend at this point. There's just too much uncertainty going on. Crude has bounced back, so we're now in the 176 range, mid-range, 176.60. So we're in good shape there. We had a super strong week in tech. I mean, Cloudflare had amazing earnings and was up $20 or so. ARM obviously up as high as I think $35 and about 55%. So it did really well. Microsoft still climbing up and lots of opportunity there. The upswing in ARM pulled up a lot of the other semiconductors, which certainly didn't need help. But like looking at Lam Research, up $47 on Friday, that's outstanding. Amazon is doing well. Really everything in the tech space is doing well. But I do feel like we're getting towards some kind of a bubble right now, or a peak, especially with the S&P 500 over the 5,000 mark for the first time. So it might be a good idea to trim some positions and take some cash out, or trim all positions and look in other areas in the market where there's better value. So that's where we are for February 9th. I hope you had a great trading